Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Idagio Live. It is Idagio, the place where, actually, idagio.com to be exact, the place where music, sogar, let me do all that over again. Hi, everybody. It's Idagio Live. It's Thursday. It must be with Thomas. It is idagio.com, the place where classical music happens. And we are really happening tonight. One of the most wonderful things about this Thursday night series, oh, yes, I must say, I am on the road. I am in Millstatt, Austria. I'm at a friend's house. I'm in a obviously well tapestried new house, as it will. So my background is a little bit different than what you're used to. This wonderful gentleman sitting here on your camera that I will introduce in just a minute is somewhere else, and we'll get to that. This one of the fun things about this series on Thursday that I get to do is I get to invite colleagues and conductors, and I guess they're colleagues too, and presenters from the business, and just have a conversation about what drives them, what part of this classical music phenomenon that you are so passionate about as a listener and an audience, to find out what we are, to put faces and names with you together for 45 minutes and let you really listen to a private and personal conversation about music, their lives, and their life story. Tonight, we have Ryan Speedo Green. Now, you have probably heard about him in various places, whether it is 60 Minutes or CBS Morning News or the book that's been written at New York Times. This young man is what we call internally amongst the older colleagues, a rocket ship. So, just hold on and let's just get right to it. Ryan, great to see you. I had forgotten that we've been on stage a couple of times because I was so overwhelmed by your story and everything going on for you. And at one point I said to my wife, I said, Vienna, we did something in Vienna there. And then I remember that we were Pietro, you sang in Boccanegra.
Yeah.
And then what did you sing in
Angelotti and Tosca, yeah.
Angelotti
and Tosca, yeah.
That famous 3 or 4 performance series where Piotr sang his first couple of doses, right?
Yeah.
Were you standing on the side like I was, just going?
It was awesome, man. It was awesome, and just to be on stage with you and to hear you sing that role, and then a couple of months before that, having heard you in Simon Boccanegra, and also just watching you and listening to you my entire musical life that I've been listening to and singing classical music. It was really awesome to finally, be in a room with you and be on a stage with you.
You're kind. Now, I asked you off air. I'm going to ask you again on air. You go by, your name is Ryan Speedo Green. You're known as that, but you go by, people call you Speedo.
Yeah, I mean, I say that all my friends call me Speedo. And my mother, when she was very mad at me, calls me with my full name. And so whatever you say, Ryan, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do?
My first name is Walter, and I only very seldom heard it, but when I heard it, it was like,
yeah.
but now, because of TSA, you have to have your whole name of your passport, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they call, whenever I travel, I'm now Walter Hampson, which is really spooky because that's my deceased father. I was never called Walter. So somebody paged me Walter Hampson. I almost had a heart attack. I thought,
that he was come around the corner, Don Giovanni.
Anyway, so we're going to get into, let's start at the beginning. You have gotten a great deal of attention on, in my opinion, 2 fundamentally important levels. For me, as an older colleague, what I'm so excited for you is that you're just breaking through the ice and you're becoming Speedo Green. You're becoming this next generation of major bass baritone in the major repertoire and really starting to have wonderful experiences, and that's fantastic. Of course, your personal story is one of a dimension that, quite frankly, most people, and I don't even know where to start. What do you want to tell people? What would you like to tell people about what this story about you is about that people have maybe seen in the New York Times or some other publication? Because I get the idea that you're quite passionate about telling that story.
I think the irony is, I thought for a long time that the story that I was living, the life that I was living, wasn't special at all. I thought that I didn't really have a story to tell. And I just thought that what I did and what I went through to get to where I was on stage was normal, and that was supposed to happen. And it wasn't till I faced a reporter for the New York Times Magazine, where they're doing a sort of piece on the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions competition, and it was, I believe, in 2011, and I was one of the 22 semifinalists, and I received email inquiring about my story of how I got there to the Met competition and to the Met semifinals. And I thought to myself, I don't really have anything to say. So I didn't write the reporter back. And then I get to the Metropolitan Opera for the semifinals, and I get another email saying that the writer Daniel Bergner would like to meet with all of the artists for 45 minutes to talk about their journey and go from there. And I was like, I'd rather focus on my music, because I don't think I'm going to make it past the semifinals. I just want to focus on making the best impression I can make, and so I didn't write him back. And I was walking through the hallways right before the semifinals, like in the last day or two, and Daniel Bergner stops me and he's like, "Hi, I'm Daniel Bergner, and I'd love to sit with you for 45 minutes to talk about your story and how you got here." And he's like, I'll buy you lunch. And I was like, "Oh, free food? Young artist, free food?
Good boy. My mother would love you." Never turned down a meal.
And so he took me out to eat, and the 45 minutes turned into 3 hours. And
where did he take you to eat?
The Met cafeteria.
Oh no!
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. As a young, I spent many hours in the Met cafeteria, and it is almost like a second home. And just as a young artist at the time, it was my first real meal there. And I sat there, and I almost felt like I was in the White House lobby, or the Met Stadium, front row seats. And I was just like, oh my God, who am I going to see here? Is Thomas Hampson coming around the corner?
Yeah, right. And, you're sitting in the corner memorizing the next scene that you're going down sea level of the stage. I mean, tell me, I've been there.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it was great.
So you have this interview with
with Daniel Bergner. Daniel Bergner, the writer of the book,
right.
and at the time he was just doing the article. And come to find out later on that of the 22 semifinalists, I was the only one who didn't write him back in any of the times he emailed us. And people were sending him, of course, singers, we love to give as much as we can give, and he just had a sort of writer's intuition that maybe something was going on here. Like, why did this kid not send me anything in any of the emails? And next thing I know, after the Met competition, the Met semifinals, and I, luckily I got into the finals, I got a email from him asking if he could sit in my coachings that week. He just wanted to see if he could sit in my coachings. And I was like, that face you gave me is the face that I was sort of thinking myself. I was like, oh my God.
New York Times writer in your coaching.
It is. And it's like, I barely made it emotionally and physically to the finals. And this guy's going to sit in all my coachings and watch me shout out my heart and my soul to try and make it, into the grand finals. And he said he would be like a fly on the wall. I've never noticed him. And I was like, sure, why not? What the heck? What do I have to lose? And of course, if you read the book, and my first rehearsal was with Patrick Summers the next day after the semifinals. And if you know anything about working with Patrick Summers, he is a really tough conductor, and doesn't give you any leeway as far as you have to know the music has to be sung the way that it's written. It has to be perfected, and he loves perfection, and he loves giving singers the opportunity to show their best musical and vocal light. And I get into that rehearsal, and Daniel Bergner sitting there, and he sees his first experience with a high lever conductor. And
were you all over the place?
I will tell you, I just finished my master's degree at Florida State University. I was 24 years old. I was very green. I had never performed. I'd only performed one opera professionally, and that was at Opera Colorado. And that was my only claim to fame. I'd done summer programs, but I'd never done a professional gig. And it was probably the highest level conductor I'd ever worked with at the time.
What did you sing for him?
Well, he first of all, I believe he started with that. I wasn't. He was constitutionally unable to work on Madamina that had sang in the semifinals. He's like, it was so bad, I'm constitutionally unable to work on it, I think he said. And and in all honesty, he's probably right at the time. And then he's like, okay, what else do you want to sing? And I offered Blitz's aria, Hear Me, O Lord, from Susanna. I offered Como Del Ciel, or sorry, I'm not on stage, so I can say that, from Macbeth. And then I also offered La Colunia from Barbara Seville. And then I think my last piece, escaping me, but anyway, there's another piece offered. There's 5 pieces, and he initially said no to one of the pieces, like absolutely not. He said no to Madamina. He's like, let's try La Colunia. And he's like, okay.
What was his reasoning? What was that all about? What was his reasoning?
Well, I will say, like, look,
something he could be of use to you with.
Yeah, he wanted to, and what at the time, I will tell you, it was the hardest coaching I ever had in my life. It was an hour long, and it felt like boot camp. It also felt like I was flawed in every single way possible in my mind. Of course, this is probably not what was happening. But as a singer in this stressful situation as the Met competition, the conductor wants to put a piece. He's about to put you on stage with the Met Orchestra in front of a packed house, because these Met competitions are always packed. and you're basically giving you 7 to 10 minutes to show the Met House, the Met judges, the Met competition judges, and the world that you are the future of opera. And he wants to pick pieces that are not only, going to be great pieces for the audience and great pieces for your voice, but pieces that won't, and how do I say, pieces that'll propel you forward instead of holding you back. And he wants every singer who sings on stage to win. And so that mentality, he was not going to put me on stage to sing an aria where I couldn't do the double consonants properly, where I couldn't do the different small, how do I say, small nuances of that piece. I mean, people hear that piece and they think, Mozart, oh, it's, especially listeners who don't know the intricacies of Mozart, how much extra it takes to put little nuances in every word. He means everything. He writes what he means what he says, kind of thing. And there's so many layers to his arias. And of course, me being a 24-year-old, that was my first time singing the aria. I had never performed the role. I didn't really understand the character. I was just kind of like, oh, it's a really pretty piece to sing. And he could sense, as a conductor, as a musician at such a high level, he could sense that when I was on stage. And of course I had, I was lucky and blessed to show vocally what I would be capable of, but he understood that piece was not the piece that was going to show professional judges and people in the business that I had the not only the voice, but the artistic future to be on the Met stage. And so he said La Colunia was salvageable. That's what he told me. La Colunia is salvageable. And he's like, oh, Como Del Ciel, that sounds nice in your voice. And so we worked. He gave me, he gave me a list. A list as long as Madamina, the aria of things that I had to fix before the week ended. And so I went home and I went to hotel room, and I called my voice teacher, David Okerlund, at the time, called him, and David I basically cried. Yeah. Shout out to And,
oh my God, he was in
San Francisco Outer Fellow.
San Francisco at the same time.
And I cried to him, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a failure. Blah 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 blah. There's no way I'm going to fix this. And he gave me one of the best advices I still to this day remember. He said, Speedo, pick one thing. And also Carrie Matheson can attest to this too. She coached me the next day. Pick one thing out of this piece, one thing out of that list, and fix it. And until you fix that one thing, don't move on. Fix that one thing. And I promise you, if you fix that one thing, when you work with Patrick Summers the next time, he will notice that. And so I picked one thing that I was like, okay, this is really bad. I need to fix it. And I spent the rest of that night, where I should have been sleeping, fixing that one thing. And I went to my coaching the next day with Carrie Matheson and fixed one more thing. And then I took it. I had 5 days basically before the Met, 5 days before the Met finals, last rehearsal with orchestra, and I worked on one thing per hour or 2 hours that I could fix. And by the time I got to my last coaching with Patrick Summers, which he was conducting, I believe he was conducting, what was he conducting gosh, it's escaping me. He was conducting an opera, and he met me in one of his breaks.
Was he doing Rusalka?
No, it wasn't Rusalka. It was a Italian opera, but it's escaped me, and I apologize. It was a long time ago. But he met me during his break, so he had a like an intermission, and he told me I could meet him in his dressing room, and I worked with him playing piano. Worked for like 15-20 minutes on both my arias, and because he wanted me to have the best opportunity to win, and he saw something, and he gave me everything I could handle, like everything. He threw everything at me, the book at me, in a short amount of time. And I thought in my mind, Patrick Summers hates me. Oh my God, he thinks I'm the worst singer on the planet. And the irony is this is the irony. The day of the finals, I get an email from the head of the Houston Young Artist Program asking me that Patrick Summers really wants me to come and be a young artist at Houston Grand Opera. Exactly. And the day of the finals, and at best, I guess in that week, I'm so thankful to Karen Matheson for all of her help, and all the coaches there, and my ex-voice teacher David Okerlund for giving me these pointers of working on one thing, because he noticed it. He noticed that, okay, I see this kid comes in here.
You ended up staying at the Lindemann, right?
Yeah, and so the irony is, of course, so I ended up going to the finals. It was an amazing experience, amazing competition, and I ended up winning. I was one of the 5 grand finalists winners. And then I was the only one chosen that year to be in Lindemann from the competition. And of course, the next day I got a phone call from the Met asking if I wanted to audition for the Metropolitan Young Artist Program. And then, of course, the day before that I had the Houston program. So in the span of 2 days, my entire life changed. Yeah. And this is coming from Florida State to the Met.
Let's go back just a bit for everybody, because I mean, I know parts of the story. I'm not so incredibly. I know I read. I don't want to lie. I haven't read the book.
No worries.
I've read about the book. I'm waiting for my signed copy from you, which I can pick up in Vienna anytime. But I haven't read it. But I mean, I know lots of bits of the stories, and I think that why it caught so many people's imagination is because as you're talking now, you're talking and describing successful young singers and their path, and that's wonderful, and it's fun to talk about that. And of course, for me, it's great because I'm Patrick Summers is an old friend, and Carrie Mathon is an old friend, and and I, had I been there, I would have said to you, Speedo, Patrick Summers doesn't take extra time for people he doesn't believe in. It's not going to happen. He's a very professional guy, very demanding guy, knows his stuff backwards and forwards. He's a charm and jewel, and I did a world premiere with him a couple of years ago in Houston. He's an amazing musician. He's an amazing human being. So, you locked into him, he locked into you. That's great. But let's go back at the beginning. I mean, you came from a pretty dysfunctional family. Yeah, is that a tactful way of putting it?
No, you're very right. It was very dysfunctional.
One could use adjectives like terrifying, horrifying, appalling, unbelievable. This can't happen. I mean, but to talk to you now, and as people are listening to you talk, you've got this zip, you've got this life in your eyes, you've got this obvious motivation. You're engaged. Was there a time somewhere back in your childhood when you said you didn't believe in all that, where you thought, I'm just going to end up like so many other Black men in this country, or my life is shit? Or did you, as I understand, you had pretty abusive parents?
No, so I grew up in a very volatile situation, both emotionally and physically, like not only with my parents' side, but me as well. Like in 4th grade, I was kicked out of my elementary school. In 3rd grade, kicked out, and I was put in a special class in 4th grade for the worst of the worst kids in my school district. They picked like kids from every school, like one kid from every school who was basically.
You've been a winner since way back.
Yeah, I've been a winner since the 4th grade. Winner of the worst kid in school.
But let me ask you something, as you're describing this at the time, as it was happening to you, are you saying inside of yourself, I'm not a bad guy? What is this all about? This shouldn't be happening to me. Or are you locking in? There was a time where I thought, I guess I'm a shit, so that's it.
No, I think at the time, like the reason, I mean, this is such thoughts in my head. I didn't even think about what I was feeling till I got older. And I think looking back, I'm 34 years old, and I think how, even to you talk to me now, I think to myself, how could I have been that kind of person as a child up to 12, 13 years old? It wasn't a short period. It was pretty much from 5 till 12. I had this anger in me and frustration in me. And I think looking back, it has a lot to do with my self-worth. And I think a lot of times children, because again, you have to think it's a child. I was a child, a child's mind. I didn't think I was worthy. I couldn't accept kindness from others because I didn't like myself. I didn't like the home that I was living in. I didn't like the life that I was living. I didn't like me. And when you don't like yourself, how can you let other people like you? How can you, and so I acted out, and both violently, and emotionally, physically. Yeah. Say it again.
Did you get in trouble?
I got in a lot of trouble, so much trouble even that I'll tell you about my first day of class. I mean, I was put in the special day of class. It was basically a special ed class for people with behavioral problems that couldn't be around other children. And my first day of class, it was a very small class, maybe like 6 to 8 kids. And I'm and the way that I introduced myself to my teacher, who was this little 5'2", 5'3" white lady with blonde hair, is I threw my desk at her. And I told her that I would not be taught by a white woman. Oh. And instead of sending me to the office for my mother to come get me, which, any teacher in their right mind should do that, because they should never be assaulted or any of that sort of thing in school. But instead of doing that, she took my chair away and told me I could learn from the floor. And when I'm ready to behave, I can have both my desk and my chair back. And that's sort of like tough love approach, which at the same time, it was the first
that registered for you.
It was the first time someone in my life up to that point, someone who wasn't my blood, who wasn't my family, didn't give up on me immediately. Because the first thing that people would do is, if a large black kid, no matter how old I was would be violent.
Were you big?
I was a big kid then, not ginormous, but I was 4th grade. I couldn't be so big, but regardless, anytime a young African-American male does anything violent, or anything, or shows any sort of emotion or extra emotion, they become a danger. And she didn't see me as a danger. She saw me as a troubled child, like I was. And what she didn't give up on me. And that's the thing that stuck with me. She didn't kick me out. She was the first teacher in my entire life who didn't kick me out of the room immediately. And the next thing she taught me and taught everyone in her classroom was the Martin Luther King speech. I have a dream speech. She made all the white kids, the Hispanic kids, the black kids, any kid in her class, every morning after the Pledge of Allegiance, we had to quote parts of that speech so not only did we say it to each other, we say it to ourselves. And we believe in her class that every day we will be judged by the content of our character, not by the color of our skin. And so every day was brand new. Every day we could prove to her who we were as human beings. And that sort of mentality sort of left a space open in my mind. It wasn't immediate. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't immediate. I failed a lot grow after that.
She sounds like a saint. Did you keep up contact with her?
Not only did I keep contact with her,
she's the one that's in the story that came.
She is. Yes. So she has been a part of my. Not only did she see me, I wasn't supposed to graduate high school, nevertheless middle school. But not only did she see me graduate high school, she saw me in my first opera in high school. She saw me graduate college. She saw me get my master's degree.
Stop there. When did music come into this?
So this is how, again, my story, if I can put my story in a very short sort of sentence, is my story is the story of how people how educators who go the extra mile can affect a child's life, and how strangers can affect people's lives with acts of kindness. You have no idea how love from a stranger can affect a person more than love from their own family. And at the time, no matter how much my parents loved me, no matter how much my mother loved me, the situations going on in their life was affecting me emotionally, physically. It was bad. And go ahead.
I want you to take. You say as your mother loved me, but your mother was actually quite violent to you.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it was
to you. Did you feel that you deserved it, and ergo she still loves me, but I must be the one that's causing this trouble?
It was volatile in every way. As much as she was violent to me. It was egged on by a very aggressive and physical outburst from me. So it was back and forth. And of course, I believe as a parent today, a parent of two children, I have two boys, almost 3-year-old and a 5-week-old, that the things that my mother did with me as a child, I'll never repeat. And
is your mom still with us?
yes, she's still with us. And I spoke with her today, actually. And I think
you have a decent relationship with her.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting better. Has
she worked through stuff that you've worked through? Have you helped with that?
I think my mother's from a different generation, and a little bit how do I say, a little bit more stubborn when it comes to admitting that you've done something wrong or that you made a mistake.
I'm not going to take that personally. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and I have to say, like, I tell anybody in the business, if it wasn't for the upbringing that I had with my mother, I wouldn't have the fortitude and the iron skin and the ability to overcome the obstacles that I faced in this career. Because there's
one apropos iron skin. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'll probably get all sorts of bad email, but it doesn't matter. We'll get to it. Mignon, I think it was Mignon Dunn, fantastic mezzo soprano, total arts professional. Somebody asked her what you need to be a major professional opera singer, and she said, "The heart of a butterfly." And the person just got, "Oh my!" And then she looked at him right in the eyes and said, "And the hide of an elephant." How's that sound?
That's so accurate. And I can tell you literally, not many people can say the worst part of their entire life was being 12 years old. But to this day, I'm 34 years old, and the worst time of my life was being 12 years old and in a jail cell in juvenile detention. That was the worst point in my life. And nothing after that no matter how many times I failed at an aria or choked on a note, or got stage fright on stage, nothing was worse than that. Nothing was worse than that. Nothing. And for me, every day that I live, every day that I get to do and be a part of this, field and this art.
When you were 12, where were you?
I was in juvenile detention. So after I left the amazing...
What city? What part of America? In Virginia?
In Virginia. Yeah, so I grew up in Virginia. I was born in Florida, but I grew up in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, in southeastern Virginia. Near I guess I grew up in Windsor, near Suffolk, which is the closest... I guess the closest thing is probably Smithfield or Norfolk. Some people know Norfolk or Norfolk, depending on
Norfolk most everybody knows that because of the naval base.
Yeah, so that's where I actually went to high school. The music high school I went to was in Norfolk.
All right. Okay, so you've got all this trouble, and all of a sudden you're grinding through your self. Where all that. Where have you always been musical? Did you always like music? Do you play an instrument? Did you?
People.
Where did this come from?
People make misconceptions about. Make a lot of misconceptions about African American singers, especially me as an opera singer. People assume that, oh, he must have been a gospel singer or things like this. I was never a gospel singer. I never sang. I actually, if anything, I probably had a really sad attempt at like a hip hop karaoke when I was a kid, but nothing when it came to music and singing.
But okay, I get that, and I think Americans in general, there's, I went through a parochial system and sang as a kid and sang in the choir and all that kind of stuff. There's the choir influence on American singers is huge.
It's huge.
Why American singers are kind of from the get-go and extremely musical. The idea of selling a song and being part of a song is very natural to us. Coming to other languages is perhaps different from telling stories, but that's another subject. But what I also meant was, did you listen to music? Did you like hip hop? Were you into jazz? Were you into rock and roll? Were you into blues, or all that stuff? I mean, when did you realize that music in whatever genre just got you going?
I will tell you, there's a moment in the book, the book Sing for Life by Daniel Bergner. There's a moment that I was looking at my records because I sort of blacked out those months that I was in juvenile detention. I blacked them out. So once I got out, I made pretty much a adult decision, which at 12 years old still is crazy to me that I made this adult decision. I was like, okay, those 3 months don't exist. You've gotten out. you're never going to go back there. You're going to do everything you can to not go back there.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until I started working with Daniel on getting records back from then that I started bringing up memories. And I was reading, at this juvenile detention facility, they took 15-minute logs. Every 15 minutes, they took a log about the people who were there, whether it be good or bad, whether they're just, they're chilling here, or no, they're acting up. And my log for the months that I was there was, ginormous from all of the things that I did and happened to me there. And as I was reading them, I thought about, there are moments where I spent a lot of time in seclusion and in the seclusion cell, or in my cell where, had a little window with bars on it. And if I had good behavior, they sometimes allowed us to have radios in our rooms. And I remember sometimes even when I wasn't having a good day, or I was being disciplined, they put me in my room and I have to stay in this room. One of the ladies who worked there would sometimes give me the radio anyway, because she knew that I spent so much time there that maybe, just to give me some bit of solace. And I remember listening to the top 40, and the irony is I can remember almost vividly those songs of the top 40 playlists, of the top 20, top 40 songs of when I was 12 years old, because I spent so much time listening to that music and being the only thing that was my connection to the outside world. Yeah, and it's crazy how now I do what kept me sane. I do that for a living in one way or another, and that's the amazingness that is music.
And was the first epiphanal moment for you as into the classical music world was Denise Graves? Is that true?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So yeah, I at 15 years old, I happened, I told you about Elizabeth Hughes, Betty Hughes, my fourth grade elementary school teacher. Her husband, when I was in fourth grade, told me that he got a job as a principal. I was like, oh, that's fine. That's cool. Whatever. You're another principal person who's going to punish kids or something. And he told me that he was a principal for this magnet school for the arts. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. That doesn't matter. And this is me in fourth grade. Skip 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I get out of juvenile detention in 7th grade. And I moved to a brand new neighborhood because my mother moved out of the ghetto I was living in to another ghetto to try and give me a chance to better myself, which I'm very thankful for.
I got to stop you. I want people. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just want our public, because you're having a wonderful conversation with perhaps more different kind of people than you've ever had before. When you say the word ghetto, what do you mean?
I mean, so I grew up in low income housing. My mother was a single parent raising boys, lots of boys. And I lived in a neighborhood.
You have a lot of brothers.
I have 4 brothers. I have 3 older brothers by my dad. Sorry, 2 older brothers, 1 younger brother by my dad, and one stepbrother.
Okay. And
when growing up, I grew up in literally a neighborhood where they were dealing drugs. Actually, one of the biggest distributors of heroin and cocaine that was made in my neighborhood and in the area was made next door to me. And they did a drug bust on them. I think my senior year of high school, and arrested 19 people. And it was
man, how easy would that have been for you just to fall into that shit?
I mean, and it was very actually. I mean, one of my brothers is a gang member, and it's very easy to be a part of it. It's very easy to be part of it. And I was actually statistically, because I went to juvenile detention, I was supposed to end up in jail. It was pretty much guaranteed that I would end up either back in juvenile detention or at one day later.
You read the appalling statistics of incarceration in America, or if you have ever tried to endure the movie 13. I mean, hello.
Yeah.
Or other movies, I mean, which are incredibly important. And I do want to talk about what's going on in America today. And I think it's important, but I just want to keep focused on this music thing. So somewhere in there, as a high school student,
so in 8th grade,
an opera performance, and here comes the stupendous, and may I proudly say, great friend, Denise Graves. I met Denise Graves. We did a record together of Hamlet. We laugh about this because she sang My Mother. And that was a bit funny, and it was back in the day, and you know, I'm obviously older than she is, and she was, you know, just one drop dead gorgeous girl. She still is, but you know, she was really, you know, beautiful and doing all the Carmens, and all of a sudden she's singing My Mother. We had a good laugh about that. But I'll never forget the day she opened her mouth. I mean, I'd never had a rehearsal with her. I knew about her, but I hadn't been around her. And you know, are you serious?
Yeah, she changed my life. So again, I at 8th, and when I got out of jail audition, I decided to change myself. I decided I would do whatever I had to do to make sure that I don't end up on the streets, that I didn't go back home after school and get the wrong influences in my life. And of course, in these kind of neighborhoods, there's not many opportunities for kids like me to have after school opportunities and education to better ourselves, to give us more opportunities. And this is sad, and it's true in the US, but I happened to fall upon this Latin club. It was a Latin club. And from Latin club, again, most randomest after school activity I could find, I found it, and it became a lifesaver because I was introduced to people who were in chorus, and I was like, oh, maybe I should take chorus as an elective so I can be around these people who I really, really enjoy being around in the Latin club. And I ended up in chorus, and the chorus teacher gave us a CD, the 24 Italian Art Songs book, and told us to you know, sing a song in front of the class. And I chose a piece and I sang it in front of her after listening to the CD. And she asked me, who's my voice teacher? And I was like, oh, no, I just copied the guy on the CD. And she's like, but so do you play piano, read music? I was like, no, I don't do any of that stuff. And she's like, okay, well, you should audition for Government School for the Arts. And I'm like, oh, whatever, sure, you know, to make her happy. And I went to this audition. And after I sang Star Spangled Banner and Caro Mio Ben a cappella, or tried to sing it, let's put it that way, I walked out of the audition room, and there was Betty Hughes' husband. And mind you, I told you, after I got out of juvenile detention, I moved away. So I lived about an hour and some change away from where they knew me. And so he apparently became the principal of one of the best magnet school for the arts in Virginia. And he was the principal of it. So I walked out, and he's there, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you here? And he's like, I'm the principal of the school. And I'm like, I thought he was a principal of some like normal school. And I got in to the school, which I'm sure was not all due to my amazing rendition of Carmio Ben a cappella. And I got in, and I thought opera was like this big fat white Viking lady breaking windows, you know, or like, you know, something from, you know, Bunny of Seville, you know, cartoons I grew up with. And I just thought it was some comedic thing, you know, that, you know, made fun of people. And I especially thought it was something only white people could do, because I had never experienced a person of color singing opera. And so my magnet school for the arts in Virginia every 2 years took a trip to New York City to watch operas and musicals, like classical musicals, like, you know, 42nd Street, things like that. And so I had an anonymous donor pay for me to go, because I couldn't afford the trip. You had to pay for this trip. And of course, I found out later that donor was also Mrs. Hughes and Mr. Hughes, which again, so much, this acts of kindness are literally the one continuous thing in my life that happens to me that keeps changing my life. And I go to this New York trip expecting nothing, expecting to like laugh the entire time I'm at the opera. And of course, the opera was Carmen, which is like one of the greatest beginner operas any person, whether you like opera or not, can see. It is.
And you don't laugh a lot.
No, you don't. I mean, it's completely accessible. Of course, there are funny moments in the beginning, or, you know, funny moments in between. But it is the most one. It makes you laugh. It makes you cry. Oh my God! And if you have a great Carmen, you are, and you're a 15-year-old teenager, you're like, you know, da 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 da. And it not only was it the setting of having it at the Metropolitan Opera, which is, you know, when I walked there, I thought it was like a Coliseum, like Gladiator. It looks so amazing.
It's amazing.
And having Carmen be my first opera. But the thing that really hit me, the thing that sent me over the edge, was the fact that the lead singer, the title character of this opera, was portrayed by an African-American mezzo-soprano, you know, someone who looked like me, and she blew me away. And I before that, I never knew that it was something I could do. And it made it tangible by seeing her. And then what took it to even the 100th level was afterwards I got to meet her in person. And this is the acts of kindness I'm telling you. This big time, this was in her, you know, big time mezzo soprano, one of the greatest in the world, spent 20, 30 minutes after her show to meet a bunch of high schoolers. There was like 20 or 30 of us. We sat in the green room, and she came back afterwards to meet us. I mean, and I will say at the time when I was in government school, there was maybe like 6 or 7 black kids, and the rest were white. But that was a large that was a large amount of black kids to be in an opera program in my area. And she came into this room and treated every single one of these kids like they were like her friends or family. She took pictures with me, called me her boo.
Is that the night that you is that the night you proposed to her?
Yeah, I mean, don't tell my wife, but it changed my life. And I left the Metropolitan Opera at 15 years old, and I told my voice teacher, Robert Brown, who's another man in my life, who changed my life, who was my voice teacher. I told him, I know what I want to do with my life. And as a 15-year-old young black man who had never had a dream or an aspiration other than to just not end up in jail, it was the first time I ever had a dream. That and think about that. That's the first time I ever had a dream, a want. I had a actual want, and I said it out loud. It was so big in my heart. It was so heavy on my heart. I had to say it out loud to somebody, and I told him. And instead of Robert Brown, this man who knew that I didn't know how to play piano, knew that I couldn't read music, knew that I didn't know how to speak any languages other than bad English at the time, knew that I had never performed a role on an opera stage, didn't tell me it was impossible. He said, Speedo, if you want to sing at the Met, you got to do this ridiculously long list of things to even get to the point where you can audition for like something like the Met chorus. And
have you kept all of these lists that people keep giving you?
I mean,
you got them somewhere?
In my mind, and Robert Brown. I mean, from being in my first opera to going to college, getting my master's degree, doing an artist program, performing regionally, staying all these steps.
You went to college. You have a master's degree in music.
Yes.
Wow. So somewhere along the line, you had to learn how to read music.
Again, this is going to be a theme you're going to get. After I told him my dream and he gave me this list, I basically went home and I told my mother I need a keyboard because I have to learn how to play piano. So I started mowing lawns. I bought myself a little like $70 Walmart, electric piano. I got a Piano for Dummies book, started taking it seriously. And then I told Mr. Brown, I need more voice lessons because I don't know how to teach. I don't know how to sing. I don't know how to sing any languages. And so Mr. Brown's like, okay, so, to do voice lessons, you got to pay me a certain amount of money because, I can do it privately with you because we get one voice lesson a week because it's a high school program. And so we have to do private lessons. And so I told my mom's told Robert Brown, I can't afford it. And he was like, okay, well, he needs it. He has to, if he wants to pursue opera professionally, he needs more lessons a week. And she's like, okay, well, I can't pay you. And he's like, okay, sure, I'll do it for free and give me whatever money you have when you have it, but you have to come take him home. Cause I lived in Windsor, which my school was in Norfolk, which is about a 45-minute ride, a 45-minute back and forth, 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes another. And my mother told him I can't pick him up because I have to work to even pay to live in our trailer park. I work at nights. She worked nights. So Robert Brown's like, okay, I'll take him home. Whenever you can pick him up, please pick him up. So I would have 3 lessons a week. This is for 3 more years. 3 years. I had about 3 lessons a week, sometimes 4 every week for 3 years, where I sat in his studio and he taught me how to teach myself. And the rudimentaries, not only of singing, but of diction, of ear training to catch me up. So I wouldn't get kicked out of the school. Second of all, so I could start being prepared for college and how high I would be in college. And because, he wanted me off the streets. He didn't want me to fail. He wanted me he wanted me to realize a piece of my dream, to be a part of that dream.
When did the horizon of classical music start to widen that you got roped in by Gustav Mahler?
Well, this is you're gonna love this. As I talked about, how much of my experiences have prepared me for this career. Like, it's almost like I was meant to do this, in a sense of having the hardships of my life to give me the material to work with in the future. And I didn't realize that the hardships in my life as a child would give me the base to have the emotional connection to a lot of these pieces. And, Mahler, Liszt, Schubert, Wolf, these amazing German lead composers, there's so much depth and their pieces, you could sing a three-page the Doppelgang, the Atlas from Schubert, and it literally has so much story in it. And for me, that as I got older, I started feeling connected to these stories and this music. And unfortunately, I didn't mention my father at all in the story, but he wasn't really a part of my life till I was 18. I saw him maybe 2 or 3 times before I turned 18. But when I saw him at 18, we became very connected and spent about 6-7 years together before he passed away. And but he got to see me sing at the Met before he passed away. He saw me my first opera, and he passed away a month later at the Met. And I wanted I had my first big recital in the enlistment program, and I was working with Ken Noda, one of my mentors at the Met, and I told him I really felt connected to these German pieces, and I was working on Parsifal at the time, the second night in Parsifal.
I was sung that.
Yeah, it was my
first Wagner role.
That was my first Wagner role, and my first German opera. The first German opera I ever sang in was at the Met in Parsifal. And so I told him I really loved Wagner, and I know I'm not like ready to sing a huge Wagnerian piece at the age of 20. I think I was 25 or something, 26, but I want to sing a piece in the style of Wagner, honoring my father, because there's so much depth and emotion in his pieces. And he's like, who's a really great influence I think you would really like is Mahler. And he's like, Mahler and Liszt are a great. Those are my 2 favorite German composers. I don't know if I should throw it out there, Mahler and Liszt. And he's like, when I think of African American singers putting depth into German pieces that like have never been done before, I think of Jesse Norman. And he's like, you have to listen to this piece. And so he pulled me out, and he's worked with her a lot, Ken Noda, on this. And so is Maestro James Levine. And he showed me the Mahler 2 in Jesse Norman's section of that. And I was wrought into tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I don't know any males. I mean, this is a mezzo soprano piece. He's like, no. And he's like, go research. And so what did Ryan Speedo Green do? We went home on lovely iTunes and looked up this guy, Thomas Hampson, who had a piano recording 1991 and a 2010 orchestra recording.
Oh my God.
So those became my male inspirations to show me that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
that makes me feel good. Cool.
Yeah. And so I still, to this day, like I whenever I want to feel inspired by that piece, I listen to that piano recording you did, and as well as your orchestral recording you did in 2010. And so Jesse Norman was his inspiration to me, and you became my male inspiration for that.
Did you ever meet Jesse?
The irony is, again, so many of these things. I sang to her this piece with orchestra. When she got honored not 2 years ago, the Glenn Gould Foundation honored her.
All right.
And I sang Urlich for her, as well as Aprite poco gli occhi from Le Nozze, and that was her last public singing appearance. She sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I believe.
Yeah.
And then she passed away.
Disease and septic, and I mean, it's unbelievable.
And I told her, I got to tell her how she helped me cope with my father's death with that piece. And I'm so thankful that she paved the way for people like me to give amazing performances of dramatic music and feel connected to it like I do.
So have you connected with I mean, there's so much to talk about. We're going to run out of time here. I know that everybody's as fascinated as I am. It's fantastic. It's wonderful to hear you talk. At some point did you become aware that there's actually a significant history of African-American opera classical singers?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, again, once I was introduced to Denise Graves in person, Robert Brown, my voice teacher, was like, there's like one of the greatest sopranos in the history of all
Robert
opera.
Brown, African-American?
Yeah, African-American. Yeah, and he said, do you know that some of the greatest American singers are African-American, and one of the greatest sopranos of all time is African-American? And I was like, who's that? And he's like, oh, let me show you Leontine Price. And then he introduced me not only to Grace Bunbury, who I've met here, Jesse Norman, who I'd heard as well. I mean, even I grew up even listening to in college Larry Brownlee when he was on his rise. And
George Shirley was the
George
first
Shirley,
guy,
of course, and he judged me in the George Londons. After I won the George Londons, he came to me, and I know all these singers, and even people like Morris Robeson, who came before me, and Lindemann and Eric Owens, who I've idolized my entire career.
Oh, he's amazing.
So, but the thing is, as much as Simon Estes, as much as there are African American singers, sprinkled throughout America's long history of
It's a good word. It's sprinkled.
It's sprinkled. I'm sure there's not many opera lovers who can name more than 10. And I mean opera lovers. I'm not talking about opera singers. I'm talking about opera lovers.
Oh, I get that. I get that.
It's a thing that I think there should be more representation.
Speedo, what I'm passionate about, and with my foundation, and me in song and all that.
Yeah, of course.
Is and I've been at this, and I'm just so thrilled that I've moved into this partnership now with the University of Michigan. We've got this classical song initiative, and one of the great silos is the celebration of the African American classic music canon, and especially the African American Song Alliance, which I've been supported from the day one with Daryl Taylor, and tried to help where I could with the foundation and making the internet possible. This is, we got to do this again, because we need to go on from this conversation, because what we're starting to talk about now is, like you say, sprinkling of Black singers, but even more audaciously absurd, offensive, quite frankly, is all of this music and all of this creativity of Black American poets, librettists, and composers that has sometimes had a success and ergo put down and put away. If you think of William Dawson's symphony, which just took everybody's head off, and hello, rediscovered. Why should it be rediscovered? Much less, William Grant Still. How many operas did the man write? Troubled Island is this, why isn't this part? But, our opera houses, it's not just Black American or African American. It is American arts and letters. It's a compact problem. In all of this positive kindness of all these people and these wonderful things that you recognize, did you ever experience, because I asked some colleagues of yours over the last couple of weeks, did you ever experience going through school or getting chances where you felt that people were looking sideways, or you weren't going to get into that audition, or you were going to have trouble at school because you were African American?
I have to tell you, I've realized, even in my situation, the luck that I've had. Like, I will tell you, in every situation in school, the hardest people, I will tell you, even the hardest people on me were some of the most powerful people in those schools, whether it be Robert Brown, who was my voice teacher, but also the head of the chorus and second in command at the school, or it be in college, Joanna Levy, who was my first college voice teacher, who was the head of one of the heads of the voice program, but was also the one who failed me in my sophomore eval because she didn't think that I had worked hard enough. And also David Okerlund, who was my voice teacher in grad school, who also failed me in my first eval because he didn't think that I was working hard enough. I've had the most people in most powerful positions push me the hardest, but they're also the people who had a lot of say in what goes on. And I've been very lucky and very blessed, but I also know that once I got out of there, it was a different story. Once I got away from the protection of collegiate schooling, I realized that my situation was exceptionally special. And the thing that I, the misconceptions I talked about with gospel music, it happened a lot with me in auditions. You walk into audition room, and I'm a large Black man, and a lot of times I feel that sometimes you walk in, there can be preconceptions that this gospel sound, like the moment before I even open my mouth, people are thinking, can he even sing an Italian double consonant? This is some of the things that people might, because they see a Black man, like, can he actually sing in a foreign language? Is he going to sound like a gospel singer? These kind of preconceptions, and of course, I hope I shatter those when I open my mouth and I show them the training and the amount of effort I put into my music. But when you mentioned this initiative, of Black composers, I want to ask you, how many African American people do you know who are in administration in the opera world, in the world? Think about it. Think about how many African American conductors you know.
Yeah, you were part of that. There was an amazing Oh, by the way, I just got the news that we can talk all night. So, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and go to bed, because when you get up in the morning for breakfast, we're going to still be talking. Right? We're going to go on here for a while, because we're now getting into some really good stuff. And I saw that talk that or the live forum with y'all, with that Janai put together. Another spectacularly wonderful.
Yeah.
I've had such a privilege to get to know you guys as you're coming up, and it's just wonderful to watch you just bloom and go. You know, I have a new motto. My motto is empower,
yeah,
enable, and embrace.
Yes.
You guys,
it's never too late. It's never too late.
But you've picked on something when people talk about, you know, the classical music world, and everybody assumes, one, it's elitist, which is complete nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Even if classical music is elitist, it drives me nuts. I give me 5 minutes to talk. If we had not had the revolutions in France and America that gave us self-determination and democracy, we would not have the canon of classical music that we have. So I don't know what elitist about that. And you get that kind of crap over here in Europe as well. You know, education is under tremendous pressure politically, because everybody thinks the politicians, most of them, are just concerned with getting training and getting jobs and calling about economy, and people can own 2 cars and have 3 kids and a big house, and that's the way it all goes. And, you know, the arts are all about the value in life. I love to quote Joseph Campbell, so that, you know, this great philosopher, and after all these years, and he's dying for cancer, and Bill Moyers looks at me, so Joe, is there one thing you want to tell people about all this mythology? And he said, yeah, it's all about knowing. I want to make sure I get it right. I want to get it right. It's about knowing the meaning in life, not the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And I just think that it just blew, you know, I thought, yeah, that's what it's about. We're here now. And of course, that's very Mahler too. Mahler, you know, we're here now. Every human being is an instrument the universe plays on. You know, it just turns it completely upside down. And the mitigating factor is exactly what you've experienced, and what most of us have experienced: compassion, love, tolerance, reasonability, which widens horizons, lessens anger and hate. And you don't have to agree with everybody, but there's nothing more fulfilling than buying somebody a cup of coffee after a horrible argument.
You
know what I mean? You know, that they agree to disagree. You know? And we live in a time where, you know, there's so much going on in our industry, and we should keep on talking about that. And your question, I don't want it to go unanswered. It's ludicrous. I mean, as this thing blew up in Glimmerglass, you know, I wrote to Jessica, who's a very good friend of mine. I said, so maybe it's time for an African American H&R director. I mean, when was the last H&R director in our industry that was a person of color? You know, I can't name you one. I can't name you one. So I think that this discussion is important. I think I'm not sure how much of the press is going to properly involved in this, because they need headlines to carry stories. What I'm more concerned about are actually colleagues talking to colleagues, and administrators talking to administrators. And do you have the feeling that you're old enough, you've seen this come and go, you've seen these revival meetings of non-racial blah, blah, blah enough, and I've seen it, I don't know how much over my life. It feels like we're in potentially a change of reference. Does it feel like that to you?
I mean, I feel that not only did COVID-19 put us in a situation where we have a lot of inner thoughts and self-reflection, and being forced to do that, but as well as seeing the injustices that's still happening when you're having a pandemic around the world, that there can still be, like, people still can't get off their, I don't want to say horse, but, you know, can't get off of this idea that we're not all the same, because no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you can die, like from something like this.
COVID,
and that kind
COVID doesn't care.
It doesn't see color. It doesn't
all
see
the way to the grave.
Yes, and it makes me think a lot. For me, how you know, how lucky I am, you know, and how blessed I am to have literally have doors open for me in ways that majority of singers who want to pursue this field don't. And how in my case, you know, being African American and growing up the way that I grew up in the neighborhoods that a lot of African Americans grow up in, if I was supposed to fail. I mean, by statistical standards, I'm supposed to fail. Yeah. And I'm supposed to be a circle of failing. My children are not supposed to grow up where they're growing up now with the opportunities that they will have because of the opportunities that I will give them, because of the wealth that I've accrued in my life. And where
did you spend COVID?
I spent COVID. I'm in Vienna, Austria. So I live here.
You live now in Vienna, don't you?
Yeah, I've been. We just bought a home here in December, and I've been living. Been living in Vienna for the last 5. This is my 5th. This season was my 5th season at the Staatsoper, the Vienna State Opera. And yeah, I spent COVID. My child was born during COVID, you know, look, my second child. And it's been a rather eye-opening experience to not be singing, but as well as to see what could happen when a country followed, did what they're supposed to do and buckled down and hampered down. And I was able to have 3 performances before the opera closed for the season. And I even had and I know so many singers who won't have performances till January. And I was, because Austria did what they needed to do, shut down the country, wore a mask, social distance. We were able to pull it back to where we have performances.
I've been in Switzerland and now when the borders opened back up. My wife and I live in Zurich, but when the borders opened up, then we came because we have a family place outside of Graz. But exactly, we watched this a lot. It was extremely impressive. I mean, okay, it's less people, but I mean, I think just in general, Europeans have a more collective understanding of that emergency social level. Yeah. I've been really puzzled as an American, and it's quite informative to live over here and keep track of America, don't you find?
No, let me tell you.
A lot of my passion and understanding of American arts and letters, and especially music, and especially American song, has been because of this distance. It wasn't just about taking the formulas of German and French and going back home. It was looking at America with clean eyes and saying, no, wait a minute, what's that story all about? And that's where I came up with this thesis about 20 years ago that said, looking for our Brahms or our Wolf or our this or our that is nonsense. You need to look at America's cultural history every 10 or 15 years and let those voices, especially poets and composers, tell you what that life was about at that time. And that's been I've been very refreshed that's been a kind of unlocking to especially American song, the idea of that song in America. Now I get all the Liszt and the Wolf and the Schubert and the Mahler references. Are you also singing American song?
Yeah, I mean, I
don't mean old goddamn Man River.
Yeah, and thank God you mentioned that.
I mean Howard Swanson. I mean Margaret Bonds.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance to hear any of my recitals, I make it a huge point. A lot of people don't. And we were mentioning. I'm living in Europe, and the Sing for Your Life book has been such an amazing experience. The feedback we've been getting from people reading the book, that people read the book, want to hear the person who they're reading about sing, and they want to hear them live, and they also want to talk about and experience what they're reading about on stage. And so we did a workshop of Sing for Your Life as a sort of a musical presentation of parts of the most climactic moments in the book with song. And so I end up singing not only my German pieces that I love to sing, but singing the Italian opera and art song, African-American art song. And for me, like in my recitals, I made it a huge point to put African-American art songs and African-American spirituals in my recitals, because I want people to know this is my part of America. This is my piece of America. And from I too am America. I too am the dark. Langston Hughes poetry, to Margaret Bonds, to Thomas Kerr.
Do you sing that? What is it called? Dream Images or Dream something?
The three pieces.
That's perfect for you. I sang it. I just hear a different voice, and I love singing, and I love The Negro Speaks of Rivers.
That is my piece. That is one of my favorite. The Negro Speaks of Rivers is one of my favorite pieces, and I think
it's just a beautiful piece.
You mentioned this the Old Man River, and I can tell you from the very moment that I started singing. And by the way, I didn't start off as a bass baritone. I started off as a tenor when I started singing opera. And since the moment I got on stage singing my first little tenor Italian art song or whatever it was, I walked off stage and an old white lady came up to me and asked me if I knew who Paul Robeson was, and how she would love to hear me sing Old Man River. And I thought to myself, even then, and I was like, but I'm a tenor. And from that day forward, every single time, I mean, I will say, of course, it's gotten less and less as my status has gotten higher and higher. But every performance I had from age 15 to probably the Met, only white, never black. I never had a single black person in my entire life of singing opera come up to me after I sing opera. Even when I sing African American art songs or spirituals, I still don't have people of color asking me to sing that. But always there's an older black woman or man who comes in and asks me if I know who Paul Robeson is. Do I know who William Warfield is? And I should sing Old Man River, even if I'm singing a Wagner piece, singing Liszt, singing Mahler, singing Verdi, singing Puccini.
I got to break it to you. You might know this rather good bass baritone called Sam Raimi.
Yeah. Oh yeah, one of my idols. Yeah.
You think? Mine too, and a good friend. And I remember saying, I've been doing some recitals. Well, how did they go? Well, I don't know. I have a feeling that I think in the future I should just come out and sing Old Man River and call it a night, and we could all save ourselves and go drink. Because they don't want to, he'd bring out Paul Bowles and he'd bring out all the Joubert and whatever else. But in fact, the first encore would be Old Man River, and everybody would go for absolutely not, because it's a bass thing. It's also, of course, a beautiful black man and a beautiful black voice. And, it rings some sorts of chimes. It's just so cliche. It's so unnecessary. So, I find something else. The thing about Paul Robeson is this guy was such a pathfinder. This guy was, the only reason he even remains slightly, when people cringe, is because he was a absolute bona fide socialist, if not communist. I mean,
he was hated by America. He was hated by Americans because he preached equality.
Now these collections of his recordings and the songs that he sang, and I mean, he was picked by Kurt Weill to sing the Whitman songs at the beginning. He premiered the Whitman songs, the three anyway, of that Kurt Weill wrote. And I mean, this is just, and unfortunately, these cliches come, and so he's stuck over here singing that piece, when in fact his influence on American culture was ginormous.
But I have to tell you, I have to a little bit disagree with you on the piece on the Old Man River, in the sense that, I mean, the thing that bothers me the most about it, and what really bothers me the most about it, you don't hear many black people being like, I want to be pleased by Old Man River, knowing it's a different kind of, when a black person hears that song, it's a different feeling than when a white person hears that song. As you said, when white people hear it, they hear, there's something about the tune and they like how pretty it sounds, and da. But the piece is about oppression of a post-slavery Jim Crow era African-American life. It's not a happy song. And the words and the original lyrics of the piece, he doesn't say, working folks or colored folks. He says nigger folks, because back then that's what white people thought of us. We were nigger folks. And it is not a happy song. It is a song about being oppressed by the white man, being oppressed by his white boss, who makes him toil, and every single day of his life he has to work. And the only pleasure he gets is thinking about death.
That's the river.
Yes, and that's the symbolism. And if you understand that this piece is not a piece about the pleasures of how great my master treats me, it's a piece about how my master oppresses me, and the fact that for generations white people want to hear this piece to please them. is what really pisses me off.
I agree with you. I get it. I agree with you completely. And what I meant was exactly what you said about the white folks. This cliche, oh, they hear this big, beautiful bass voice and the tune and they love it. And they don't go into the meaning of the words. They don't hear the symbology. Okay, let me ask you something. Was Jerome Kern onto something, or was he being patronizing?
I mean, again, this is what I wish I can go back and speak to a lot of composers, including Wagner, about some things. You can't.
Well, don't we all? But I mean, you put Wagner on the psycho couch and he'll never get up.
Exactly. And we can't talk about it, but I have to tell you, like the piece I mean, out of context, I tell you, I did not like this piece for so long, and I still don't like it out of context, but in context of the piece and what he talks about in the operetta, because I consider it an operetta, it has meaning and value.
Have you seen Showboat?
I actually sang Showboat. I sang Joe and Showboat.
Okay.
I sang Joe and Showboat at College Light Opera in Falmouth, Cape Cod.
So is there some? I'm not trying to make apologetics for it, because I have serious problems with the piece.
No. There's
and by the way, I think that the whole thing about the N-word, that is something one is never going to come across my lips, on stage or off stage. I have real issues with that too. And some of the songs I've looked at and some of the dialect that I've looked at, I've just shied away from those things. I happen to have a pretty ecumenical view about Stephen Foster, but that's another question. And again, not apologizing. He gets put into a wrong category. But on the other hand, there are some songs they just don't need to be sung, and they sure as hell shouldn't be sung with the text that they're written to. Done. We're done with that.
I think,
is that enough?
I tell you, one of the great moments when I workshopped this Sing for Your Life performance experience of the book. One of the moments I talk about Old Man River and my experiences with it, and how one of the experiences I had was singing it, being forced to sing it in front of a bunch of people at a party that I was invited to. And when I'm being forced, there was situations involved where I had no choice but to sing it, and how angry it made me. Every word that I spoke, every word that I spoke out of my mouth with notes, it was in anger. And so I explained this to the audience, and then I get up and I walk up to the side of the stage and I start to sing Old Man River. But I sing it with the original lyrics. And if you could, and then midway, and I sing it in an impassioned way that I sing it, how I would have sung it if I were singing it in stage in that performance in that era with those words. And I stopped midway. I stopped midway through the piece because I couldn't go on. And when I tell you, there were no tears of joy in that audience. There's not a single dry eye in that audience, because people for the first time, I think, heard that piece for what it really was. And it felt so empowering and honestly, I think, for me, every time maybe someone asks me to sing that piece, they're gonna get the piece, but they're not gonna get the version that they have heard.
Regardless
by Sam Raimi.
do you program it at times?
It's only in the purpose of the show for that moment, and it's a really powerful moment, because all the things leading up to it reach to that climax of perceptions about.
Do you explain to the people? Maybe you don't actually understand what this damn song is about.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Like I talk briefly about it before I sing it. I tell them my story. Like, I mean, literally, that's why this piece, this production is so involved. I sit down with Daniel and I tell them about the story of me singing Old Man River in this situation that made me feel uncomfortable. It made me feel like circus monkey, and then I get up and they start hearing the piece, da, 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 and they're like, oh my God, he's going to sing it for us. And then they already feel a little bit weird about it, because I just said that I feel like a circus monkey singing this piece. And then I hit them with the original lyrics, and people are stunned. And then I sit down after I compose myself, and we talk about where this piece came from, what this character actually is in the story, and what he's singing about, and why they changed the words. Like, they had to change the words.
But you're doing Jerome Kern a favor.
I am. Yeah. And I felt really.
Do you think that's what Jerome Kern was trying to do?
I mean, it's a jarring scene in in the context of the lyrics of the piece, and of course through the initiative of performing the piece overseas and everything like that, which you know, I don't know if you know the whole history of the piece. Paul Robeson and people involved had to change the piece to make it more accessible or more easy for white people's ears, because they didn't like feeling the way they felt when they listened to it, and so he had to change the words to make it more acceptable to the audience, so they could sell tickets, because it was too effective. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
and that's a powerful statement.
You and Katie Schmidt, right? You're with a concert with Katie Schmidt. Great choice, mine too. But you guys are putting together a European tour.
Yeah, so yeah, we're putting a European tour together, and it's you know, we're working on it, and it's going to hopefully come to a lot of cities near you in Europe, and of course in the US too, if as things in COVID die down.
Are you going to have time for this? Are they giving you time for? By the way, are you going on? Are you obviously staying on at the Opera in Vienna with the change of direction?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time at the Staatsoper, and it was sort of planned that I was going to move on. I had 5 years there, 5 amazing years. The company there, everybody worked there, prepared me to have a career that I am hoping to rekindle and restart after COVID. But you know, I tell you, like, it's crazy to think about. You know, as a young singer, I went to the Wiener Staatsoper with about, I would say on a maximum 9 performance 9 roles under my belt professionally, maybe less. And after 4 seasons, I started this year in September, and I was just inquiring, what did I do here? It seems like a bit of a whirlwind. It happened so quick. Apparently, I performed over 39 roles at the Staatsoper alone. I performed over 200 and something performances, 240 performances, or some crazy thing like that. And this is in 4 seasons. And mind you, I've been very lucky that the Staatsoper has release me for gigs at the Met and Houston and California, things like that. So I've only been at the Staatsoper maximum maybe 5 months, 6 months, 5 months out of every season, and I performed that many roles, and that's whew, it's a lot.
You're working your head off. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but it honestly doesn't feel that way. It feels like
hoping to get this tour going.
You know, again, it's
COVID, but
it's COVID. So we're working it per basis, and you know, the collaboration.
But I mean, this season already, or probably next season.
Hopefully, we'll get some performances in Germany and in Europe in the fall. Wow. And we're looking forward to that. Hopefully, you know, some of the people can hear this and hear kind of what we're preparing for it and doing. And it's a great collaboration with Promethean artists and Schmidt. And it's
who is Promethean, the producer?
So Promethean is my U.S. management, and Askolnis is my European management, and they're working together. And I'm very blessed to have both of them on board, and with collaboration with Schmidt as well. So
Katie Schmidt is doing the touring part of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
got it. I got it.
It's a collaboration. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it's going to be a fantastic tour. So go on to RyanSpeedoGreen.com. I presume that's true, right?
Yeah. Or Promethean artists as well.
If you put in Speedo Green, you probably get the whole.
I'll show up.
So go on to Speedo Green, find out what he's going, get the calendar, make it a date, do it. Are you going to any of these electronically? By the way, have you ever heard of the Global Concert Hall, the project of iDodjo.com?
No, I have. I would. You know, I have not, and I would love to be a
Global Concert Hall. Also, for you, ladies and gentlemen, the Global Concert Hall is the next level. We've got iDodjo as a streaming platform. Then we augmented, but we were pushed a little ahead of schedule. But because of COVID and all the breakdown, we did iDodjo Live, which was, as you can see, people, you know, putting faces and people together and talking about all sorts of things, as well as wonderful master classes. This is the series from Yvonne Fischer on Mahler is wonderful. There's interviews with Franz Weser-Möst and Michael Thomas and pianists and so forth. But in June, iDodjo launched Global Concert Hall, which is a wonderful initiative, which is a platform that gives actually a paywall to presenters and either artists or institutions or orchestras. And it's a very generous, even split, 20/80. It's fantastic. 80 for the artist, but it's just built to get a wider public, because without question, our future is this third rail of production. We're not going to take electronic pictures. We are going to have people that are there and people that are watching, and that is the new norm moving forward. And Idodjo is very much ahead of this curve. So you and I are going to correspond about the global concert hall, which this recital should certainly find itself in. Ryan, we've just, or Speedo, sorry, I've been calling you Ryan.
No, it's okay.
Anyway.
You can call me anything you want. You're Thomas Hampson. You could
call me ridiculous. First of all, I hope we find ourselves on stage again. And,
me too, man.
Should I ever chew off Macbeth again? I can't imagine a better banco.
It'd be nice to kill you. It'd be nice to kill you instead of me dying.
Fiasco would be a lot of fun. Have you looked at Fiasco?
Oh, of course I looked at Fiasco. And I have to tell you, Ms. Hampson, not only am I so happy that you involved me with this, and you're involving so many singers of color and Americans telling our stories, but I'm also so thankful for your career in opera and how every country you've been to, you represent our country in the best light, and that everywhere I've gone in the world that your name is mentioned, it is mentioned as a true liaison and an ambassador for how great American artists are. And so thank you for your service and as an American all around the world promoting opera and how amazing American singers can be.
I'm going to start crying. You've touched me very. It's incredibly kind of you to say that, Speedo. I deeply appreciate that. It means
Mr. Kamazinga.
There's nothing that breaks my heart more today than to see this agony we need to go through to finally understand that we are Americans, and we come from different parts and we look different than one another, but we are human beings first and foremost. And to me, the most obvious answer to anybody's confusion is the arts.
Yeah, this is true.
Performing arts, and right back at you. You are a beacon. You are your enormous passion and light in your eyes is contagious. Go get him, man. Just
thank
go
you, Ms.
get
Hampson.
Let me know in any possible way I can help. I'm at your disposal. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Ms. Hampson.
Been a pleasure. Don't call me Mr. You call me Mr. Hampson again, I'm gonna smack you.
No, I'm from the South. I have to. It's anybody who's from the South understands.
Okay, say it very slowly. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. Tom, great to talk to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
Don't you call me Mr. Tom? Mr. Tom sounds awful.
I know. Mr. Hampson's better. I like that.
Yeah, it sounds like
I'm going to call you Mr. Walter because I don't want you to freak out.
No, you can't call me Walter. You can, however, call. By the way, Tom or Thomas, I don't really care. But call me Mr. Hampson to my face. I will hit you, and then I will run very fast because you're much bigger than I am.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, man, take care of your kids. I hope you didn't wake up.
No, they're great. Thank you.
Be well. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week. I don't know with whom, but I do know. Next week, it's Martin Haselbuck, and we're going to be in Linz before a concert. We're going to talk about old music and new music and so forth. It's great fun. Come next Thursday, Martin Haselbuck, Thomas Hampson. If it's Thursday, it's Tom and some phenomenal guests like we've had tonight. You're a record. I've never gone an hour and 22 minutes. And we could have gone another hour. We got it. Do it.
That's awesome. No, it was really a pleasure. Are we all fair now?
No.
Bye-bye.